All right, guys, our next guest is a veteran, a staple of the UFC's middleweight division, and one of the most well-known personalities in the sport. He takes on Gegard Mousasi in what will be very much a homecoming for him. Michael Bisping, welcome to Submission Radio. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. I'm actually back in London right now, so it's always good to be home, but happy to be taking time out to speak to you guys.
Well, speaking of being home, we mentioned in the intro that this fight will be a homecoming for you. It will, of course, be taking place in your home country of England, a place where you haven't fought in 5 years. How good does it feel to finally be back home again, fighting in front of your people?
Yeah, of course. I mean, for me, the English support of the UK people and the European fans have really was kind of forged my career. So, anytime I fight here is very special for me. As you say, it's been 5 years, so that's too long. So I'm very excited to be back at the O2 Arena, such an amazing venue. As you say, 5 years, I've been very lucky. I've fought all over the world, but some of my, dearest memories are fighting at the O2 Arena, so I'm very excited to be back there in February.
Before this fight was set up, you originally meant to fight here in Australia on the record-breaking UFC 193. How hard was it for you to make the decision to withdraw from the original fight against Rob Whittaker? And was it tough at all for you to watch that pay-per-view, seeing how big of an event it was, knowing that you were almost part of that?
Yeah, well, it wasn't a decision that I had to make. The decision was made for me. The arm, it needed surgery, as simple as that. I couldn't perform, I couldn't train, I couldn't do anything. So it's not like I had to weigh up the options and make a decision. As I said, the decision was made for me. And of course, it stung, it was painful, I did watch the fight, obviously, and it was a huge event, a great arena and a great event. But... it's the nature of the beast. And yeah, of course, when I watched the fight, I watched Uriah Hall and Robert Whittaker. And of course, as a fighter, I thought I could school the pair of them and beat any of them on my day. It did sting a little bit, but, this is the fight game. And unfortunately, injuries happen. And I've been around enough to know that. And I knew in the back of my mind I'd be fighting in London. So that was a nice little consolation prize, if you will. But I do love fighting in Australia. I fought there 3 times now, and fighting in Melbourne for the first time would have been nice, and of course at that huge arena would have been good. But c'est la vie.
Let me ask you. You mentioned that you saw the fight. Just quickly, were you surprised with the fact that Robert Whittaker was able to beat Uriah Hall, and did you sort of expect it, knowing getting prepared for Robert and seeing some of his footage before the fight that you were going to have with him?
Yeah, no, you hit the nail on the head. That's exactly what I thought. The fight went down just the way I thought it was. I picked Robert to win the fight. Robert is much busier. He's faster on the feet. Hall, Uriah is more explosive and he's more explosively fast. But Robert is he moves faster. He fights at a higher pace tempo, and I thought he'd win a decision, which is what happened. Uriah Hall, for all his brilliance, he kind of takes his foot off the gas at times, and he's kind of a point fighter in some ways, although his points when he lands them are devastatingly powerful, but he's still kind of a point fighter. He doesn't fight at a high tempo. So I thought that would play into Robert's hands, and, he proved me correct.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because Uriah Hall either has highlight reel knockouts or sort of not that such great performances. Do you think he's sort of in that position where fans expect him to throw all these flashy strikes, do all these crazy things in fights, but at the end of the day, sometimes when it doesn't work, you see a fight like he had with Robert Whittaker?
Well, I don't want to turn this into a trashing Uriah Hall session, because I've got nothing against the guy. And he's an incredible athlete, and he does some very amazing things. His skill set is phenomenal, but he just needs to mentally, sometimes it's the one punch, the one kick thing isn't working, then he's got to step on the gas and fire the high tempo, So, and I'm sure he knows that himself. He steps off the gas a little bit, and it's cost him a couple of big fights. He's an immensely talented guy, as I said, and he should be in the top 10 right now if he'd have won some of his fights, but he hasn't. So, as I say, I don't want to turn this into a bad mouthing Uriah Hall. Robert Whittaker did a great job. But at the end of the day, I'd have beaten both. So, next question.
Let's talk about your upcoming fight. Let's look to the future. Gegard Mousasi, what do you make of his last fight against Uriah and the way he lost? When you watch that, does it tell you much about Gegard? Is there anything you can draw from that? Or do you think it's just a case of getting caught and having, bad night in the office?
Yeah, I'm going to kind of repeat myself. I just said I don't want to turn this into a trashing Uriah Hall session, but I think that's what it's going to turn into with my next comment, because Uriah Hall and Gegard Mousasi could fight another 99 times. They could fight 100 times, and other than that fight deterrence, Mousasi would smash him every single time. You know, and that's just, and that isn't a detrimental comment towards Uriah Hall. That's just how good I think Mousasi is. Mousasi is an incredible fighter. This is a guy that was going to, you know, represent the Netherlands at the Olympics. So his boxing is, you know, as good as it can get. He's got high-level boxing, great level kickboxing. He's awesome on the floor. His wrestling's good. He's very experienced. He's very composed when he fights. You know, you put all those things together, you've got a very formidable opponent, but certainly a beatable opponent. You know, I see some flaws. You know, since he came to the UFC, I think he's won 3 and lost 3. So, you know, it's not like he's unbeatable, but certainly a formidable opponent that I'm going to have to prepare for.
Well, you mentioned his boxing. The two of you are very well-rounded and both technical strikers. How do you feel your stand-up matches up with Gegard's? Do you see yourself beating him on the feet?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I always see myself winning on the feet. You know, I think I fight at a higher tempo. I'm faster than him. And, you know, ultimately, I think I've got a more diverse striking game. But we'll see. You know, and I think actually I'll have the strength advantage over him. I see him kind of getting bullied in the strength department at times. He gets taken down quite frequently. Listen, this is a mixed martial arts fight, and in this fight you're going to see a full display of everything that he can do and I can do. I don't think having a one-dimensional game plan will be successful against this guy. I'm going to have to mix it up, keep him guessing. But ultimately, you know, I do like to fight on the feet, so I think predominantly that's where it will take place. But I will look to take him down and, you know, use a good old ground and pound, as they say.
Now, we know that you really feed off the crowd, as we've seen here in Australia, but will there be pressure on you to perform in front of your countrymen and countrywomen?
Absolutely there will, you know. I mean, I haven't fought there for 5 years. UFC are going back there with a big event, and I have to win. It's as simple as that. I'm undefeated in the UK, and I certainly don't plan on starting now. As I say, Mousasi is a very, very tough opponent, but, you know, I'm coming back to England. I want to win, you know. There will be some other fighters on the card, but ultimately, you know, I'm the one that people are tuning in for. Let's have it right. So I need to win, you know. I mean, I haven't fought there in 5 years. I don't want to come back and lose. Of course, I'm going to have a lot of friends and family in attendance. You know, people watching around the world. Listen, as a fighter, you want to put your best foot forward at all times. You're only as good as your last your last performance. So you always want to win. And certainly when it's in your own backyard, when you haven't fought there for a while, the pressure is on, of course.
Well, you're actually ranked above Gegard in the rankings. He's at number 9, you're at number 7. Other than put you on a 3-fight win streak, what does a win over him do for you? And do you think this sets you up for a possible title eliminator?
Well, you know, Gegard is a world-class opponent. He's had some, you know, when he lost to Uriah Hall, that cost him a slip down the rankings. Prior to that, he was actually ranked above me. So, you know, a win over Gegard lets the world know that, listen, you know, I'm certainly at that level that can challenge for the title. Of course, it would extend my win streak. And, you know, it would just send all the right messages. If I lose it, then, of course, you know, a title fight isn't going to be spoken about anytime soon. That's a fact. Win that fight, as I say, I've been a perennial top 10 contender. I've been number 1 contender twice. You know, I've been on a good win streak and just coming off a beating of a fantastic world-class opponent. You know, all those things spell a title shot, in my opinion. But obviously, that's only down to the UFC.
Let me ask you this, Mike, because we mentioned the crowd before. You used to be a very, very controversial figure to MMA fans as somebody that once upon a time, a while ago, a lot of people enjoyed booing. Nowadays, I don't know if you've noticed the massive, massive shift that's happened over the last few years where you've really turned the crowd around and you're always met with cheers. Was that something that was important to you to get the love from the fans, or are you happy either way as long as you sort of get that reaction?
Well, listen, come on. Everybody wants to get a cheer when they go out there and perform regarding whatever it is, whatever medium that you're in. You know, you want people to appreciate you, but of course, you want energy either way. And with fight sports, combat sports, and being a polarizing character, you know, you do get that shift, you know, of emotion, if you will, you know. And as long as some people are cheering and some people are cheering to see you get knocked out, you know, that's what's important in the fight game, that you capture their imagination and you give them something to get excited about, whether it be you winning or you losing. But of course, you want to be on the side. You want to be the guy that's getting cheered for 100%. And yeah, you know, I've certainly had my fair share of getting booed, you know, and that's to say the least. I think as you get older, I've said plenty of things in the past that certainly when I look back now and I see those comments and hear those comments, I cringe, but I've done a lot of maturing over the years. I've been in the UFC for 10 years, and as I said, I've done a lot of maturing. So the only problem is when you put your foot in it sometimes, when you're on TV with the world watching, everybody's put their foot in it. Everybody's said things they regret, except people haven't always said them on TV, so that's very unforgiving. But, I've mellowed a lot as a guy as well. I've got 3 kids, and, I'm around a good set of people these days that encourage me to make good decisions, and I'm a happy player. I'm a mellow Michael Bisping. Don't get me wrong, I'm still a fierce competitor and a fierce fighter, but I'm not as angry as I used to be.
Mellow Michael Bisping has a good ring to it. Could be a new ring name. Let me ask you, Michael. You mentioned how you've been up the top of the division for a really long time, right up there. Does it at all frustrate you? Because a lot of people always say there's a lot of fighters in the middleweight division like Latis, Maya, Marquardt, Kote, Akami, and Lada who have gotten title shots, and they can't believe you haven't had a title shot and those guys have. Looking back at it, is it a bit frustrating to you that even though those were great fighters, Michael Bisping, a big name and always up the top of the division, you still haven't had a shot at that title?
Yeah, no, it is very frustrating. I haven't had a title shot, and when you certainly, even more so when you rhyme off some of the names that did get title fights. I mean, Patrick Cote, come on, for crying out loud. There was a few guys that had title shots over the years. They weren't exactly, the best contenders. But also on the flip side, there's no one to blame but myself. The UFC have put me in number 1 contender matchups 3 times. And unfortunately, the reality of the situation is I lost those fights. Had I won those fights, I'd have fought for the title. The reality is I didn't win those fights, so I can't be angry at the UFC. I had Lorenzo Fertitta walk into my dressing room prior to fighting Vitor Belfort. I said, listen, if you win, call out Anderson Silva. Don't go crazy because we're in Brazil. You don't want to riot, but call out Anderson Silva because you'll be fighting him next. I didn't win that fight, so what are you going to do? Now, of course, there was variables at stake. There was testosterone replacement therapy, there was people taking steroids and things like that. And in all 3 of my number 1 contender matchups, Chael Sonnen, Vitor Belfort, and Dan Henderson, they were all on extra supplements. They were all enhanced synthetically. They were all allowed to manipulate the system and all allowed to be cheating in something that's now outlawed. So, that does sting a little bit. And a lot of those fights, would have been very different had, testosterone not been a factor. But what are you going to do? You get on with it. And listen, I'm still here. I still feel a young man, still performing well. Got a big fight with Mousasi. Who knows what the future holds?
While we're talking about the title, we got to ask you, Mike, who do you think is winning at UFC 194, Rockhold or Weidman?
I think for that one, I'm going to go with Rockhold, to be honest. I mean, Weidman's a great champion. He's a fantastic fighter. He's very, very tough. All that good stuff. He's a great wrestler. He's a great grappler. And he's actually a good puncher. I just don't think technically he's that good on the feet. What gets him through is his strength, his size, his wrestling ability, and his chin. He's got a fantastic chin. But I just think against Luke Rockhold, Rockhold's a guy that trains daily with Cain Velasquez and Daniel Cormier, so I think he's going to be prepared for the wrestling side of things. On the feet, Luke has the height, he has the reach, he has the range, he has the speed, he has the diversity in the striking. So all those things together, and certainly on the floor as well, Luke's very good on the floor, so you can match him on the floor as well. So I think when you put it like that, and Luke's confidence and arrogance, if you will, it's a tough fight for Weidman. But again, I always pick Weidman to lose, and he's proved me wrong every time, so you've got to admire that. He's more than capable of proving me wrong this time, but if I had to put money on somebody, I think my money would go on Rockhold.
Well, speaking of Rockhold, we were there in Sydney when you fought him, and post-fight, one of us asked you about how much the headbutt from Rockhold affected the rest of the fight, and you were hesitant, but you did say that it had some effect on it. If Rockhold beats Weidman, is that a rematch that you'd like? And how do you think a rematch with Rockhold would go? Yeah.
Well, listen, I was doing very well in that first round, and then he did clash heads, and then what happened was there was blood poured into my eye, and the longer the fight went, the worse the blood got. If you watch the fight, I'm sure you've got better things to do than go away and watch the Rockhold fight right now, but if you do turn it on and watch it, you can see me stopping and wiping blood out my eyes several times. the blood was, going into my eye, and that did come from Rockhold headbutting me. So for the taller guy to clash heads is kind of curious. He has to lower his level, and he came in with the head and stuck a good old-fashioned headbutt on me, and that is the fact of the matter. And then throughout the fight, I was having to wipe blood away, and I was wiping blood away, and as I did that, he connected with a good head kick, I'm not taking anything away from him. Well done. That's the fight again. That's the way it goes. But, I would love a rematch, and, of course, I see it going differently.
Michael, we appreciate your time. We're going to let you go in just a moment. Before that, many people believe that you are fighting Anderson Silva next. What do you think about the potential Silva versus Belfort fight? Just because it's a funny matchup, both guys with their histories. And if you and say either Belfort or Silva win, and you beat Mousasi in your next fights, do you still want to fight Anderson Silva potentially?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I want to fight any guys that have had a history with performance-enhancing drugs, to be honest. I don't see why they should be rewarded. And, these guys are prolific. You know what I mean? And as much as I hate to say this, I don't want to start bad-mouthing Anderson Silva because the guy's an absolute legend. But the first time that he's tested outside of competition, he fails a test. And that's the first time his entire career was tested outside of competition, and he fails a test. So how long was he doing this for? My guess is that probably it wasn't the first time that he'd done it. The rematch with Vitor and Anderson, that's an interesting one. Vitor is certainly not the same. Anderson's getting older and he's not beating people the same. So I don't know. But I don't really want to talk about them, to be honest. I have no respect for either man. If he tests positive for performance-enhancing drugs, then there's other people that deserve my attention.
Well, before we let you go, Michael, you got to tell us about this radio show that you've started. What will you be discussing, and what can people expect from it, and when can they check it out?
Yeah, that's right. So it's called The Countdown Radio with myself and Luis J. Gomez. It's on Sirius XM Rush 93. So if you're a Sirius subscriber, tune in. I think you can catch it online if you have the app. I'm not entirely sure. I could be wrong there. And we discuss, whatever's current, whatever's happening right now. Of course, it's MMA driven, and we will be discussing big things in MMA. But the whole show isn't all about MMA. And Luis is a very funny stand-up comedian. And, we end up chatting about all kinds of stuff. And, tune in, check it out, man. As I said, Sirius XM Rush 93 on Sirius, Boom. There you go.
You just mentioned you guys would be discussing stuff that's happening right now. Before we let you go, just one last topic, actually, that we wanted to get your thoughts on. What do you think about this whole Crow Cop situation? Obviously, he retired. Then you started showed that he was using some HGH to help his shoulder recover. It's one of those situations where he had a remarkable career, like a lot of the guys like Anderson Silva and Vanderlei Silva. But at the same time, fans aren't sure what to think about this finish in his career. What do you think about this whole situation?
There's 3 times now that you've said this will be the last question.
We can't let you go.
Michael, I'm going to go now. And then he starts another conversation. I feel like you're the same way. Let's make the last one, boys. Are you there?
Yep.
Noise. Hello?
Yep, we're still here.
So, again with Crowcott, this is a guy that's had an amazing career, so I don't want to sit here and badmouth and disparage people. So it's always kind of hard when you guys ask questions like that. Again, they just tested him out of camp, and he tested positive, and then he retired, and prior to that, he fought in Japan, and I think everybody knows that, there were certain factors at play in Japan. But listen, I don't want a headline to be out there tomorrow morning. Michael Bisping says this, that about Crowcop. I've had a lot of respect for Crowcop. He's had an amazing career. He's a guy that's getting up there in the years. He claimed it was an injury. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I'm certainly a little skeptical. But listen, I don't want to sit here. Guys that helped forged, this great sport of MMA, they paved the way. And far be it from me to sit here and talk shit when they've retired, and he's not within my weight class. So I'll leave you guys to do that. You guys can assume whatever you want, and you can say whatever you want, but I'll leave that to you.
No, we appreciate the positive words about Crowcop. Guys, UFC Fight Night 83 is off to a great start. Watch Michael Bisping take on Gegard Mousasi on February 27th in London, England. Don't forget to check out his show, The Countdown, on Sirius XM, and of course, follow him on Twitter at Bisping. Michael, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks, guys. Keep up the good work.